Hey everybody, this is Tracy here to recap Married to Medicine, episode 4 of season 4. And this episode was entitled The Father, the Son, and Heavenly Spirit. So, the majority of the show was focused on Dr. Simone and her, Dr. Jackie, and Quad went to Nashville in search of Dr. Simone's father, who is missing. And so the ladies are loading the SUV and getting ready to go out on their trip when they tell Quad that they have to make one stop before they go. And so Quad's like, well, where are we going? And so they said, Mariah is going with us. So of course Quad is like, oh hell no. But then we find out that it's actually April 1st, and so they were pulling a April Fool's joke on Quad. So they make it to Nashville, and I guess they have rented a house. And I thought the house was really nice, but Dr. Jackie, she's acting all brand new, talking about, the house is too country for her, and since she's been living in her rented condo or wherever she's living in Atlanta, I guess country is too good for her now. And so Dr. Simone, she was talking about, how when she was growing up and they lived in a really bad neighborhood. And I guess where this house is at used to be a bad neighborhood, but because I think they said something about gentrification had came through. But anyway, Dr. Simone is talking about when she was growing up and how people would steal their bicycles out their yard. Well, I want Dr. Simone to know that that is still happening because here where I live, they have walked into my garage on a Saturday. Like my kids have came in from riding their bikes, came inside to get something to drink, and by the time they went back outside, somebody had came in the garage and stole their bicycles. And I actually had a guy, the bicycle had a flat tire and it was on my porch. And the bicycle had sat there for like 2 days. Well, I was going out walking one day, and so the bicycle was laying on the curb in front of my neighbor's house. And so it was an old bicycle, so I wasn't worried about it. Like I said, it needed to be repaired. And so I went walking, and as I was walking around the park, I looked, and so the guy, I don't know if it was the guy who had took it off the porch and realized that it was damaged, but some guy came along on another bicycle, rode right on up, picked that bicycle up, and kept on going. So yes, people will steal your bicycles out your yard and out your garage, and it doesn't matter where you live at. So the next day, the ladies go to meet a private investigator. And so Dr. Simone, she's telling the private investigator about her dad had gotten out of prison and that he hasn't been seen. And, they had checked his bank account and his money is being deposited into his bank account. I guess he gets like SSI or something, but he hasn't been using it. So then the private investigator, she starts asking Simone a whole bunch of questions about her dad, about, people. I think she asked what prison did he get discharged from? She didn't know the answer. About people that he may have interacted with. She didn't know. I think they asked, what treatment centers had he been to. So at one point, Dr. Simone, she got up and she went to the bathroom. And when she's in the bathroom, she's actually saying how embarrassed she is that she really doesn't know much about her dad and she couldn't answer the questions that the private investigator had. And so one thing that Dr. Simone brought up, because when she was in the bathroom crying, Jackie came in to comfort her. And we knew that, at least I knew that Jackie's dad died in the last season, but what I didn't know was that Quad's father also died, and I think it came up during the reunion shows, but I didn't watch the reunion. So, my heart really goes out to all three of the ladies, to Jackie and Quad, who've lost their fathers, and then to Dr. Simone, who finally decides to have a relationship with her dad, and now he's missing. Oh, and then I think when they went to see the private investigator, Dr. Simone's cousin Nikki was with them. And so later on in the show, another cousin shows up to help them go in search of the dad. So they're riding through the old neighborhood, and Simone's telling them about, shows them the house where she once lived at, kind of similar to what was going on in Sweetie Pie's. But, she's reminiscing and talking about, what it was like growing up and how she used to be afraid, and she would sit by the wall by her parents' bedroom, until they fell asleep and turned the TV off and everything. And so they are putting out flyers on like the light poles and everything. And some no Quad goes to, she's knocking on somebody's door. And let me stop right there because Quad, they weren't in going to look for lost daddy clothes. Quad was all dressed up, had on high heels, and she had on a denim outfit. And it was really nice denim outfit, but it was a little dressy for what they were doing. So anyway, she goes and she knocks on this lady's door, and the lady says that she saw Simone's dad a few months ago, and that he was trying to sell stuff down at the junkyard. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, how long has Simone's dad been missing? Like, is she just doing this for the show to have a storyline? Because the way the lady was talking, like it was like 5, 6 months ago that she had seen him. So, Quad goes back and let him know that she has a lead. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Simone is like, okay, like she was surprised, but not surprised in a, oh my God, we may be able to find him way, but like, oh my God, did you really go knock on somebody's door and they said that they saw him? So I was, kind of disappointed in her reaction. But they all get back into the SUV that they're in, and they go and they find the junkyard that the lady said he may have taken the stuff to. So they talk to the guy, and he says that he had never seen her dad before, over there trying to sell anything, but he took the flyer and said that he would put it up for them. So after they go to the junkyard, then Simone decides to take them to the church, and that she grew up in, I guess. And so I'm thinking, we going in there to pray, for her dad's safe and speedy return. But instead, Simone starts talking about, this is where her and Cecil got married, and they're getting ready to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary. And then she starts telling stories about their wedding day and the weekend that they got married. And I'm just like, okay, Simone, you're losing me here. You're kind of losing out on my sympathies here. So then, Dr. Jackie brings it back around, and then she asks the pastor, could he please pray, help, pray for them and pray for Simone's dad. So I'm like, okay, I'm glad somebody remembered the script and that, we're here to find Simone's dad. So next up, we have Dr. Heavenly. And so Dr. Heavenly has decided to meet up with Pastor Jewel Tankard. And if you are familiar with Bravo TV shows, you know that Jewel was on the show The Tankards, which is really about her husband and her family. And so she's in, and I think that show was like in Tennessee or somewhere, or Alabama. Anyway, she's come to Georgia to meet with Dr. Heavenly. So what Dr. Heavenly wants to talk to Jewel about is her blow up with Janice. And I guess it's really bothering her, some of the things that Janice said, and some of the other women, let her know that, she's very domineering and disrespectful and, disregards other people's feelings. And so she tells Jewel that she is going to apologize to Janice, call her and talk to her. But she also pointed out that the reason she overtalks people is because she really doesn't want to hear what they have to say. And so, Jewel tells her basically, she's not going to get anywhere with the attitude that she has, and that she has to be open to changing who she is if she wants to have a better life. And so Dr. Heavenly acknowledges that, she has a drinking problem and that she's going to stop drinking. And so I always say that, accepting that you have a problem is always the first step to recovery. So I guess Jewel did some good, because when Damon comes home from work the next day or whatever time period has passed, Dr. Heavenly tells him that, she's going to call Janice and apologize to her. And Dr. Damon, he came in the house and he was looking all sluggish and tired, like he just wanted to take a shower and go to bed. But then, Dr. Heavenly, started rubbing on him and carrying on. So all of a sudden, he wanted to go get him some nookie. Whether he was tired or not, he wanted him some Heavenly, but, then she was trying to, push him off. So I guess it was the next morning, after the little talk with Damon and whatever they did that night before. But Dr. Heavenly was in the bathroom. One of the things Jewel told her to do was to write down her goals and, and to stick with them and read them every day. So why is Dr. Heavenly in the bathroom writing down her 5 goals on the bathroom mirror. And I'm sitting there saying, okay, so you're not going to look in the mirror? Or is that the only way you know that you will actually read those goals every day, is if they are written on the mirror? And so, she basically was saying that, she was going to stop drinking. She was going to be mindful of what she says to people, and a few other goals. Then we move on to Toya. So Toya's in the kitchen with her 2 little boys, and she gets an email from her, I guess it's her youngest son, Avery. He's 4 years old. So she gets an email from the school, and they're saying that Avery is bullying kids on the playground, and he's, knocking them over and everything. And so I think it was a little girl that he was messing with. So I hope the little boy don't turn out to be a woman beater. And then in a later scene, her and Dr. Eugene, they're getting ready for bed. And so we learned that the bullying didn't stop there, and the school has sent another email. And this time they're saying that Avery has urinated on the walls and that he's kicking his classmates. And so Avery must be acting out because, his dad is working around the clock trying to pay off that tax bill. And so I guess he can recognize that there's some friction going on, and that things aren't the way they should be between his parents. And so when Toya was in her confessional after she got the first email, she was basically saying that Dr. Eugene has to be the disciplinarian because they have boys, and he has to handle the situation. Well, after they get the second email, Dr. Eugene says, well, let's take his iPad away from him for a week. And then Toya's like, oh, no, but that's too long. What about 3 days? And so then he says, well, I think 5 days is okay. And then she says, well, no, 3 days would be better. And then he, so she's bothering with him, but he's basically, I think he finally compromised and said, okay, 4 days. But I'm like, Toya, how are you going to tell him that he's responsible for the discipline, and then when he tries to discipline the child, then you won't tell him that he's being too harsh? And so they get to talking and trying to figure out what could possibly be wrong with Avery that's making him act this way. And so I think they kind of finally realized that, the kids can sense what's going on. And so Dr. Eugene says he's going to plan a father-son day outing with Avery and kind of talk to him and let him know that, everything is okay, and that, he's still there for him, and he's his dad, and he still loves him even though he's working 24 hours a day. And so my question is, what is Toya doing, to resolve this situation? Because I'm thinking, if the kids are in school, that means you're sitting at home all day. Why won't she get a job to help pay this bill off much quicker than having her husband be gone all the time? But I think that was my question in the last review, so I'm going to leave it there. Then we move on to Lisa, Nicole, and Darren. And last season I was all team Lisa Nicole, but this season, it's episode 4, and I'm already sick of Lisa Nicole and this whole want to have a baby topic. So they've decided to go to counseling, and the people that they go to counseling with, I think it's a pastor and his wife. But these people, well, at least the wife. I don't know what was going on with her, but she basically was sitting there like, what is wrong with these people? And like, she couldn't wait for them to get out of her house so she could go call somebody and tell them, all about their business. But the husband, I mean, even though he was dressed like Liberace, he did give them, some good advice. And so they were talking, and I guess Lisa Nicole's issue is that Darren is telling her that he wants to have a baby, but he's telling other people that he doesn't want to have a baby, and she just wants to know the truth. And so Lisa said something about Darren was her best friend. And then the pastor, he looked at Darren was like, is Lisa your best friend? And so he was kind of hesitant in his answer, but I think he did finally say that Lisa Nicole was his best friend. And so, the pastor basically tells them that it's time for transparency. And, here's another writing exercise. So just like Jewel told Dr. Heavily to go write down 5 things that she wants to change in her life, the pastor tells Lisa and Darren for them each to write down 5 things that they like about each other and 5 things that they don't like about each other. And then he said, let's bow our heads in prayer. So I'm not sure that Dr. Darren actually did his homework, because when Lisa was ready to sit down and talk about, the list that they made, he said that he didn't write his list down, that he had it in his cell phone. So I'm just like, okay, Darren, whatever. And so, he's talking about he needs his privacy. I think that was one of the things that he brought up that he didn't like about Lisa, because he's saying that he works the ER on the night shift, and that he comes home at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and then like 9 o'clock in the morning, Lisa Nicole comes into the bedroom where he's trying to sleep, and then she wants to have conference calls and all that. And so Lisa, I guess she doesn't see the issue in that, but I would have a problem with that. But she's saying that she does that because she rarely ever gets to see him because he's always sleeping. Okay, he works the night shift, and I'm sure it's pretty stressful, so he probably is sleepy. Like, he comes home and he probably sleeps about 5 or 6 hours, and then he probably gets up, and then he probably goes to sleep for a couple of more hours before it's time for him to go in. And so then she was saying that I think the weekends is he's off on the weekends, but she said he's always sleeping on the weekends too. So I don't know how you resolve that situation, Darren. I guess you need to get a job on a day shift. I don't know. But that's where we left Lisa and Darren. And so the show ends with Dr. Simone, and she's telling the ladies that it wasn't her goal to actually find her father, that she just wanted to get the word out. And so I was so confused at that point. And, Quad was like, well, that might have been your goal plan, but the reason I left my family and left my house was to find your father. And so, she's trying to think positive and actually believing that they were going to find him. So I don't know what Simone's goal was. So that was it. My question for this episode is, what do you think about Dr. Simone's dad being missing? And are you as baffled as I am after this episode? So let's get the conversation started, and leave your comments below. Rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And stay tuned for my recap of Insecure. It was the season finale. And I've also posted my recap of Real Housewives of Atlanta. So until next time, have an awesome week. Bye-bye.